So, of all things, the last thing I expected from Unfriended 2 was a semi-literate understanding of the internet and a semi-realistic depiction of hacking.
We have to do something, and we have to do it now.
Who's that?
Unfriended Dark Web is the second film in what is now the Unfriended franchise from Blumhouse, which I guess from now on will just be a series of Skype-based horror films with no relation to each other. It's written and directed by Steven Susko and stars Colin Whittle as Matthias, a guy who finds a laptop in the Lost and Found, only to discover a cache of disturbing hidden files that thrust him and his friends into a dark conspiracy of disappearances, human trafficking, and murder. For those of you who haven't seen my review of the first Unfriended, it was like one of the first videos I ever posted on this channel, here are the cliff notes. It's super dumb, but it's a guilty pleasure of mine, and I have a ton of fun with it despite how silly it is. The notion of ghost haunting my computer is so ridiculous that you can't help but laugh at it, and despite all its flaws, I think it's a really genuinely fun time. So then you have Unfriended Dark Web, which has virtually nothing to do with the first one at all, other than the fact that it takes place on Skype, and ditches the supernatural aspect entirely, instead delving into the real-life horrors and depravity of the internet, which is a concept I find genuinely unnerving because it hits close to home, since I'm part of a very niche ARG community that it's made up of some real crazies, and there are some really just nuts, sick people out there. And the internet is not a nice place, and this movie really does a good job at showing that. While I can't say in good faith that Dark Web is necessarily better than the first Unfriended film, since it suffers from a lot of the same narrative and technical pitfalls of the first one, mainly in the editing, I can say that I appreciated this film more because it gets really fucked up. This movie is pretty fucking sadistic. It goes some decently disturbing places. And while it doesn't show much in terms of disturbing imagery, conceptually, it makes your skin crawl, because there are some twisted people like this actually out there who do look for these things and are interested in these things. The revelations of what the secret society is doing and what they're trading and what they're interested in is really, really twisted, and I fucking loved that this movie was as sadistic as it was. There's a specific death in this movie that involves a character getting swatted, and it's so innovative and fucked up, and the entire time I was just sitting there thinking, are they really going to go this route? And that particular scene was gnarly as hell, and it hit close to home for me because I've had friends who got their houses swatted as a prank. And granted, none of them were killed in the process, but the scene had me really on the edge of my seat and thinking about that shit the whole time. I also think one of the reasons I might have appreciated this film slightly more than the first is because I actually gave a shit about the characters this time around. They weren't a bunch of unlikable scumbags like in the first film. They were just ordinary people, and the actors were giving a halfway decent performance most of the time. The decision-making scenes were actually really believable and tense, and I felt that these characters were suffering a lot more than I believed anything in the first film at all. Top that off with the fact that the Circle's hacking was actually halfway realistic, at least more than you see in a generic movie hacking sense. And it really just made this film feel more real, and therefore more disturbing. Now, that's not to say it's all good, nor is all the hacking realistic. The Charons magically scrambling the webcams to make themselves literally invisible while the rest of the frame was fine was a stupid choice. And I don't know that much about hacking, but I don't think a hacker can change the text of your message that you're sending a person after you sent it. The movie still suffers from a lot of the editing hiccups that the first one used. The lazy automatic ducking of Skype's audio in order to set up jump scares. The Skype chat windows are often used to cut corners and cut between takes while distracting you with other windows. Look, I'm here, but I'm saying the same thing, now I'm right over here. Edited together, that sounded like one continuous thought, but I teleported 3 times in the span of saying it. What I'm getting at is the editing feels really lazy at times, because they just cut from one take to another while trying to divert your attention elsewhere. Continuity be damned. There's also some really distracting ADR choices, mainly from the character AJ. There were several points, at least 3 or 4, where you can hear the characters say something, but his mouth is saying something totally different. Hell, there's one point where the main character, Matthias, has a line that you hear, but his mouth doesn't even move. There's a twist in the last 15 minutes of the movie that just feels really shoved in there for the sake of having a twist. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, but it's barely explored, and the movie could have been much more interesting if it had been. All in all, Unfriended Dark Web is a flawed but halfway decent follow-up to the first movie. In terms of quality, it's about on the same level as the first one, but I enjoyed it more due to its unflinching sadism and tackling of more relatable real-world horror. It hits the same pitfalls as the first movie, but it's still a disturbing good time, and I'm gonna say that Unfriended Dark Web is solid. There's a marketing gimmick where different theaters are showing different endings of the film. I think there's like 2 different ones. I guess in an attempt to make you see the movie more than once at different locations as a means of getting them more money. But I'm not gonna fall for your shit, Mr. Hollywood executive. I'm just gonna wait till it comes out on Blu-ray. I'll watch the other ending there. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel and you want to see more, click down there, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Unfriended Dark Web. Let me know if you thought this one was better, or if the first one was better, or if you thought they both sucked. I have a Patreon now down in the links below. If you want to click it, donate, you can help me make this channel more interesting and better and more fun to watch for you guys. Every dollar helps, guys, and I would truly appreciate the donations, but even if you don't, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.
Hey!